This is a direct response to the concerns that we heard from communities across this country who said they wanted to see more action when it came to home invasions, when it came to auto theft, when it came to violent extortion that they're witnessing in their communities, when they see sexual assaults, when they see episodes of drug trafficking or human trafficking. It needs to stop.
I've repeatedly raised concerns about a justice system that too often allowed repeat violent offenders to cycle through a revolving door of arrests, release, and reoffending. Tragic murder of Darian Henderson Bellman in July of 2020. Darian was killed by an individual who had repeatedly breached release conditions and had been granted bail multiple times despite a documented history of violence. We have seen the impact of organized crime escalating extortion attempts, auto theft rings, home invasions, firearm offenses, and intimate partner violence. Bill C-14 delivers significant reforms that municipalities, police leaders, victims advocates, and provincial governments have been calling for. The new reverse onus provisions, tougher sentencing measures, stronger consequences for repeat violent offenders, and targeted action against organized crime, auto theft, and extortion represent a substantial step forward.
We heard from city leaders across this country, including the Mayor of Brampton himself, who's been calling upon the federal government for a number of years now to stiffen sentences for violent repeat offenders and to make it harder for someone who has a history of repeat offending to receive bail. We had an opportunity to engage directly with law enforcement who shared with us their experience, their frustration on seeing the offenders that they dealt with last week causing some grievous harm to another innocent person the following week.
Had stronger, stricter bail conditions and sentences been in place, he could have celebrated Father's Day with his daughter yesterday. Again, this legislation is an important step forward. It will help us protect our community, prevent a victim, and hold the people that target our community accountable. And very simply put, stronger laws mean safer communities.
The Bail and Sentencing Reform Act, as of this past week, has become law in Canada. This is a bill that was informed directly through conversations, most importantly with law enforcement, but also with provincial governments who have the jurisdiction to manage the justice system in each of their respective provinces. We also listen very closely to cities who expressed to us some very real concerns that they've heard in their community. Here in Brampton, message was loud and clear. People are sick and tired of home invasions, of auto theft, of violent extortion. They don't want to see drug trafficking and assaults taking place in their community, and they want governments to stop pointing the finger at one another and instead work together to actually change the laws to promote public safety. As you would have seen with the endorsements today of different individuals from within policing organizations, the Mayor of Brampton, my provincial counterpart, Doug Downey, who's been a terrific partner throughout, is this bill has a broad base of support. It has now become the law, and it's going to contribute to a safer Canada in the long term.
Good morning. This is Nitin Chopra from #Media. Minister, thanks for giving this important legislation to the Canadians, which was quite overdue for a long time. Earlier, the onus was lying between federal and province because that was switching, and the roller coaster was going on. Like province should have more jails, and federal is not bringing C-14. Now, thanks for that, this legislation. Hopefully, that piece is fixed now, and Canadians see a step in the right direction. If you can clarify 2 points. Any violent offender of crime, either it's a first-time offender or a repeat offender, because we have heard repeat offenders. If it is a first-time offender, the judges will not release them on a bail. It will be a mandatory sentence, and province will have enough jails to keep them. And also part B, if any home intruder, armed home intruder enters our home, the Canadians have a full right to defend themselves in any means, by any means, and they won't be get charged. Thank you.
Look, thanks very much for the question. And before you got to the two specific questions, you gave a sort of preamble about the federal government and provincial government going back and forth. I don't think there's a single Canadian, there's certainly not one that I've spoken to, who's interested in seeing more finger pointing between levels of government. They want us to work together to promote public safety. The model of collaboration that we've adopted in the context of the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act, I believe can and should be repeated in other contexts, so we can focus on demonstrating progress rather than seeking to shift blame. The first question was about a first-time offender versus a repeat offender. Certainly the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act has a distinct focus on violent repeat offenders, but you should also know that there's changes made to the legislation around what's known as the principle of restraint to clarify that in all instances, not just when you're dealing with a repeat offender, the court needs to be satisfied that the release of a person can be done in a way that won't compromise the public safety imperative. We have put directly in the legislation, this is actually a great source of collaboration with the provincial government and Attorney General Downey in particular, to insist that that individual needs to have the public safety outcome managed before a court can consider their release. The other grounds for releasing someone, about whether they would show up in court, for example, or whether their release would call into question the repute of the justice system, will remain in place. But both the seriousness of the offense and the number of offenses will be considered going forward. On the second question that you've asked, let me just be unequivocal. You as a Canadian have the right to defend yourself inside your home with the use of reasonable force. That's a law that pre-existed not just the current government, pre-existed my time in politics. The law most recently changed when Prime Minister Harper was in office. I support the change that the last Conservative government made when it comes to ensuring that you have the ability to defend yourself in your home. Of course, these are the kinds of questions that we'll continue to deal with as public safety issues remain at the forefront for Canadians. But whether it's defending yourself in your home or having the courts ensure that the public safety outcome can be managed, these are important issues, and the laws on the books will help deliver better public safety outcomes.
Follow-up is our police officers, frontline officers, they face everyday dangers on the line of duty to keep communities safe. And Deputy Chief Nick Milanovich already mentioned yesterday's event, where was the repeat offender. He had the firearm banned and he shot at our police officers. Some are injured, and we have seen many lives lost, as OPP officer also mentioned that. Question is, like Premier Ford quoted many times in his press conferences, and we would like to hear from the Attorney General Doug Downey also, that he quoted that judges are politically appointed and they run a political agenda rather than public safety concerns. How to fix that? And Minister Fraser, you also, if you can let us know, is that in your agenda to bring the justice reforms? Because there is an issue with the justice reform. We know when our leaders, Premier, when they mentioned, and how to fix the judicial justice reform, is that in your agenda? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And to nutshell that, you're asking if there's pending changes in terms of how judges are appointed. I can tell you, I appoint the judges to the Ontario Court of Justice. They do 90% of the criminal. I appoint the JPs, the Justices of the Peace. And we've done several over the last couple of years. And then, of course, the federal government appoints Superior Court judges and the Court of Appeal. We work in collaboration on a number of things, so there is a conversation that happens. We're pretty focused on the mechanics, the rules, and the tools at the moment to make sure that they land and that they're effective. So that's where our agenda is at the moment, is making sure that those things are happening. As this bill comes alive next month, we will see retraining have to happen for JPs and for judges in terms of what the reverse onus means in terms of that measure of effectiveness. So this will have an impact on all the judges in terms of what they're required to operate by, and the principle of restraint as well.
Yeah, Minister Fraser, if it's judicial reform on the agenda?
So just first in the preamble, you pointed out what is perhaps painfully obvious to the policing community in Ontario. You're absolutely right to say that there are people at risk who are at risk because they're busy keeping the rest of the community safe. This is a particularly difficult few weeks as we've seen the deaths of 2 police officers in this province. I don't know how people continue to carry themselves with such composure as we've seen the law enforcement community over the past few weeks. My best friend growing up is a member of the RCMP. I can tell you the entire policing community feels it when there is a life needlessly taken. Though outside the scope of your question, which I'll address in just a moment, there is a provision in this bill that seeks to better protect our first responders who are defending our community and at the same time placing themselves at risk by increasing sentences with an aggravating factor for someone who would commit a crime against a first responder in the line of duty. On the question about judicial appointments, as my counterpart pointed out, the federal government has responsibility for superior courts. Less often will they be engaged on matters of bail, but we still want to insist that we have the very best. The process that we put in place has an independent body examine each applicant to the bench. We have historically only chosen from amongst those candidates who are recommended or highly recommended that have come through that independent process. On the back end, as we make legal changes, we remain engaged with the judiciary, who of course has independence to make decisions after the moment of their appointment. But we do work with national organizations to ensure there's appropriate training in place, for example, particularly when we do see widespread changes to the laws, such as you've seen in criminal justice reform over the past few weeks. So this will be an issue where we remain engaged, not so much to try to critique an individual judge or start pointing out where they need to be better, but making sure as we give law enforcement the tools that they need to do the job well, that we have the tools and the training in place to ensure the judiciary has the means to deliver on the mandate that's now included with changes to the law, such as Bill C-14.
Deputy, now we have Bill C-14. Hopefully the law enforcement have enough tools now to tackle the crime, or there was more to be needed or included in this bill? Is the police force satisfied with this?
Yeah, I think it's a great advancement. The reality is we need stronger legislation around repeat violent offenders, their ability to access bail, and then really the consequences of it. So definitely a welcome tool in our toolbox. That's one element, though. We need to continue with the resourcing, strong push towards enforcement and public safety. It's one of many tools that will and has made our community safer.
Every day we see our young police officer on the front line, they feel danger and they need stronger, because their families wait also, they are humans and they need stronger laws. So what more need to be done so that their families and they are protected? We have seen many officers be lost and on the line of duty.
Yeah, this is, again, welcome announcement in relation to this Bill C-14 and the enhancements to legislation. But as you rightfully point out, it doesn't mean we can stop. We can't expect that now just because of one bill, everything is going to get better. We need to continue to push. We see illegal firearms that are brought in through the U.S. That gives us questions and discussions around, the security of our borders and ability to prevent illegal firearms from coming in the country. Those types of things we need to continue. The reality, Neetan, is the best way to achieve better community safety is it's a bit of an assessment. You need to look for where the leak is coming in, then you work to plug that leak, and then you move on to the next thing. So, we do believe that this is going to help, but we've got to continue putting the foot on the gas pedal to protect our community and make sure that anybody that wants to come to our community to target it realizes that Peel is not the place to do that.
So what is your message to the resident of Peel? If any home intruder, midnight they enter their home, what should they do?
Yeah, that's an individual question for the people that are there. You heard from the minister, we do have the ability to protect our property. You have a legislated ability and are rightful in doing that. But that's an individual person. I may react differently in that situation than you would.
Yeah.
And, I think that's an individual question for each person.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor, finally, today the Bill C-14 announcement happened, and you were the biggest advocate for years so that this legislation could pass and become a law. What do you say?
6 years of advocating, and I have to say it was heartbreaking seeing some of the tragedies. Darian Henderson-Bellman lost her life after someone took her life being released on bail 5 times. She'd never have been released. She'd still be alive today. You look at Savannah Kula, who lost her life to someone who had a history of firearm and violence. Speaking to her family, it was heartbreaking, feeling the pain in her father's voice. I fought for this reform because I knew something was broken in Canada. Yeah. When you have the same repeat criminals, it's like a revolving door in our justice system. Frequent flyers, as we call them. It wasted police resources. It created unnecessary victims. So today, I'm all smiles because it's a step of progress. It's a leap forward. It finally got through the Senate. We finally got this bill passed.
So in last 6 years, how many letters you wrote to the Justice Minister?
I spoke to multiple Justice Ministers, multiple Public Safety Ministers, multiple Prime Ministers, but we're here. You can't go backwards, you can only go forwards. And I'm grateful that today we're celebrating action.
So do you believe that this will fix everything or more steps?
No, this bail reform is one component in terms of creating safer communities. We still need the lawful access legislation passed. I want to see tighter controls on borders. Frankly, I want to see an end to criminal tourism, where we have criminals who come into our country, commit a crime, and then leave. I want to see better tools, easier deportations. And so there's more to work on, but today is an important step forward.
So your message to the resident of Peel?
That today is a great day. We're celebrating a step forward in public safety. Thank you to the Government of Canada, Justice Minister Sean Fraser, for listening to the concerns of our residents, particularly on bail.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਅਨਾਉਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਬੇਲ ਐਂਡ ਸੈਂਟੈਂਸਿੰਗ ਐਕਟ ਜੋ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਹਫਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ it has received royal assent so ਅੱਜ ਮੈਂ ਤੇ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਫਰੇਜ਼ਰ ਜੋ ਅਟਾਰਨੀ ਜਨਰਲ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਦੇ attorney general and different levels of police we're here at City of Brampton to make sure that ਸਾਰੀ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਇਨਫੋਰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ ਇਸ ਚੇਂਜ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਇਹ ਐਕਟ ਜੋ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਰਿਪੀਟ ਵਾਇਲੈਂਟ ਅਫੈਂਡਰਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਇਨ ਐਂਟਰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜ਼ਡ ਰੀਟੇਲ ਥੈਫਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਵਾਇਲੈਂਟ ਕਾਰ ਜੈਕਿੰਗਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰਟੀ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮਸ ਐਂਡ ਹੋਰ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮਸ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਧੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਕਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਸ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਐਡਰੈਸ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬੇਲ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ that we have seen in the past ਉਹਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਸਖਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ and I do believe that ਇਸ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਦੇ ਪਾਸ ਹੋਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਆਪਾਂ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਫਰਕ ਦੇਖਾਂਗੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ and it's going to be a positive impact for the safety of Canadians.
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਜੀ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਅੱਜ ਜਸਟਿਸ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਮੇਅਰ ਬਰਾਊਨ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੋਏ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਗੁੱਡ ਅਨਾਉਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਸੀਗੀ ਇਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਬੜੀ ਦੇਰ ਤੋਂ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਫੋਰਸਿਸ ਲੁਕਿੰਗ ਫॉर दैट ਟੂਲ ਸੋ C-14 ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਵੀਕ ਹੀ ਪਾਸ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਅਨਾਉਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਨਾਓ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਹੈਵ ਅ ਟੂਲਸ ਟੂ ਕੰਬੈਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਰਿਪੀਟ ਅਫੈਂਡਰਸ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਐਕਸਟੋਰਸ਼ਨਸ ਕਾਰਡ ਥੈਫਟ ਸੋ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਿ it's easy to combat that crime so ਅੱਜ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੋਏ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਮਚ ਫॉर ਕਵਰਿੰਗ ਆਲ ਦਿਸ ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਜਸਟਿਸ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਸ਼ਾਨ ਫਰੇਜ਼ਰ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਥੇ ਅਨਾਉਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ they answer all the question I think ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹ laws to protect our communities ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਸੀਗੀ now police forces have those tools to combat that crime.
And today I'm so excited that Minister Sean Fraser, Minister of Justice, along with State Secretary Ruby Sohora, came here to Brampton to talk about meaningful bail reform, which has finally passed through legislation. They've done an incredible job over almost a year of consultations with not just local police enforcement agencies, but alongside local communities as well. I had the privilege to join Mayor Brown in Ottawa, along with Peel Police, last year in May when we went down, met Minister Fraser and Minister Sohora as well. And I can tell you their effort has been so sincere. It's so refreshing to see the language with which they've come forward in this. It has been well debated through the parliamentary process as well. And our police enforcement agencies feel confident that this is the reform that they needed to see in writing. And what this means for our communities is that we will have fewer people in our communities that are repeat offenders, that are violent offenders out in our communities, out on bail, recommitting those crimes, keeping that state of terror within our communities. We're going to see a big change to that. We're going to see a good morale boost for our local police force, knowing that the incredible job that they do when they're putting their lives at risk and they're putting people behind bars, that those people will see the true process of justice unfold and not just get thrown back into the community for time to take care of itself. So I just want to thank the federal government for this partnership and making this happen, making this come to reality. And I hope that our residents in Brampton will see these effects soon and feel safer.
Today, we're here to talk about bail and sentencing reform. The act received royal assent just last week and will soon come into force. This is a sweeping set of reforms that will make bail laws stricter and sentencing laws tougher for repeat violent offenders. These sweeping reforms are the result of several months of close collaboration and consultations with provinces and territories which are responsible for the administration of justice, as well as law enforcement on the ground. These reforms will help curb the scourge of auto theft, for example. We've seen an uptick in auto theft in the GTA in the past, and I know many of you have covered stories on that. I'm happy to report that we've seen a decrease in auto theft in Ontario of about 40%. That is a big victory. We've also introduced this to fight issues of extortion and organized crime that we've been seeing growing in our communities.
Unfortunately, Darian's case was not an isolated incident. Over the past several years, communities across Canada have witnessed the devastating consequences of repeat violent offending. We have seen the impact of organized crime, escalating extortion attempts, auto theft rings, home invasions, firearm offenses, and intimate partner violence. Our residents have been clear. They want a justice system that protects victims, prioritizes public safety, and holds serious offenders accountable. That's why today's announcement is so important. Bill C-14 delivers significant reforms that municipalities, police leaders, victims advocates, and provincial governments have been calling for. The new reverse onus provisions, tougher sentencing measures, stronger consequences for repeat violent offenders, and targeted action against organized crime, auto theft, and extortion represent a substantial step forward.
Bill C-14, the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act, has now become law in Canada. This is a direct response to the concerns that we heard from communities across this country who said that they wanted to see more action when it came to home invasions, when it came to auto theft, when it came to violent extortion that they're witnessing in their communities, when they see sexual assaults, when they see episodes of drug trafficking or human trafficking. It needs to stop. And people demand that the government take it seriously, not only in the words that we express at microphones, but in the laws that we adopt in our legislatures. The main purpose for my being here today is not so much to walk you through the different aspects of the law, but it's to say thank you. I want to just draw attention to the fact that this bill was not developed behind closed doors on Parliament Hill. It was informed by people who run the systems that are responsible for justice in this country, and those who live most closely to the problems. We need to take a stronger approach when it came to violent repeat offenders, particularly on issues like extortion, home invasions, and auto theft. We heard from city leaders across this country, including the Mayor of Brampton himself, who's been calling upon the federal government for a number of years now to stiffen sentences for violent repeat offenders and to make it harder for someone who has a history of repeat offending to receive bail. We had an opportunity to engage directly with law enforcement who shared with us their experience, their frustration on seeing the offenders that they dealt with last week causing some grievous harm to another innocent person the following week. This bill is stronger for that level of engagement. It was an exercise in collaboration unlike any other I've seen in 11 years, and I believe communities will be safer for it. To the extent you see changes in the way the bail system operates when it comes to violent and repeat offenders, know that it's the people who are standing behind me today that had a profound impact that have led to a legal change that's going to help deliver safety for communities. As the Mayor indicated in his remarks, we know that a single piece of criminal law isn't in and of itself going to cure Canada's public safety issues, but it's going to have an impact. And as we move forward with tougher bail for violent repeat offenders, stricter sentences for those who've got a history of violent crime, we are also equipping law enforcement with new tools to help them keep up with changes to the way that crime is conducted in this country, including new tools to access evidence that's tied to crimes that have been committed digitally. We have new laws being put in place to help combat hate in this country, new protections for against intimate partner violence and for exploitation of children in the real world and online. But we also know the long term is going to demand that we work across levels of government to make investments in affordable and supportive housing, in mental health, in addictions, and in at-risk youth programs that help pull people away from a criminal lifestyle earlier on in their lives. But with the continued collaboration across levels of government, across party lines, and across every region of this country, we can and we will deliver a safer Canada for all.
As you know, these things don't happen in a vacuum. And he's absolutely right. What a sense of relief when those phone calls started, when Minister Fraser said, we need to do something, give me your ideas. And he collected ideas both from us and from the municipalities and from the police and from other people on the front lines. And that approach has made all the difference, because these changes are not only significant, they're practical. But we have to make sure that the province does its part. And I've heard Minister Fraser say that before, that this law is not going to fix everything. The provinces have a role to play. And we are ready. We were anticipating, hopeful, that something like this would come along. So we started many years ago, building systems, modernizing the system.
This is a fine example of responsibility. When a province and the federal government work together, what we can achieve in the view of public safety across this country. And this legislation is very personal to me. Many of you may have heard me speak at the funeral of Provincial Constable Tyrone Bali just last week, and reference that since 2020, there have been more than 15 police officers murdered across this country, 4 of which were OPP officers, including in December 2022, when Provincial Constable Greg Pershella was murdered by a repeat violent offender who was operating a stolen motor vehicle. I've said it before, that murder was preventable. The changes we will see in Bill C-14, I hope and I pray, if executed as designed, will prevent further violence in our communities. It will protect your police officers. It will protect victims of crime. It does what legislation should do. It gives trust and confidence in a judicial system if properly administered. It prioritizes the innocent while ensuring that public safety is at the forefront by denunciation and deterrence through sentencing and a proper bail system.
Public safety is not optional. It is our, as a police service, primary responsibility for our organization. In fact, our community demands public safety. In addition to public safety, they also demand accountability from the people that attempt to take that from them. And I want to share some perspective. In 2024, our community experienced carjackings that rose by roughly 83% in 1 year. Home invasions jumped by 197%. And extortions targeting our South Asian business community jumped by 268% over the course of 1 year. Our police service, thanks to the support of Mayor Brown, our police services board, has invested heavily into those areas of priority to fight those crimes. We've made our teams larger. We've arrested and charged more people than we ever have for those types of offenses. And thankfully, we have made a difference. We are seeing year-over-year reductions. We are making a difference. And today, he's actually at the first day of the prelim. I had an opportunity to speak to him yesterday on Father's Day and share some of the information and the changes that this bill will bring forward. And he is adamant that had stronger, stricter bail conditions and sentences been in place, he could have celebrated Father's Day with his daughter yesterday. So he'd asked me to share that with you. Again, this legislation is an important step forward. It will help us protect our community, prevent a victim, and hold the people that target our community accountable. And very simply put, stronger laws mean safer communities. Thank you.